Hey guys, what's going on? It's Mr. B and my dog. Say hi to the people. They love you. They love you. They love you. All right. We're going to get on with our second lesson of online learning. I already posted this to Google Classroom. So when you get a chance, just go on there, watch the video, answer the quiz. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. All right. Let's get to today's lesson, which is feudalism. Now, we talked a little bit about feudalism in the past. We mentioned it when it came to ancient China, but now we're going to start talking about it in regards to Europe. So, Charlemagne was crowned the emperor of the Romans in 800 after death CE. What were the three effects of King Charlemagne's new title? Well, those were three really big things. Well, people were like, hey, if Charlemagne was named emperor by the Pope, doesn't that make the Pope like a step above Charlemagne's? People questioning that. It also set a big divide between Eastern and Western Rome. Eastern Rome was like all bent out of shape, saying, why would you even do this? This guy's not a king. I mean, look at that guy. Does he look like a king to you? I don't know. But he isn't our king. He's some Frank. He's some barbarian. Why are you naming this guy king? It makes absolutely no sense. And the third was that the Pope was trying to actually reunite everyone. It didn't really work out that way. But the Pope was trying to unite everybody. He was trying to make one Christian country, one Christian world in his eyes. Didn't work out that way. And now we move on to the Middle Ages, the early Middle Ages, feudalism, and the church. We're going to see a lot of Charlemagne's policies. After Charlemagne, we're going to pick up now. We're going to talk about feudalism, which, as a lot of you know, is basically your lord gives you a land, says that you have to protect it in his honor. I'm sorry, my dog's just walking around me. In his honor. And you give him food, and he gives you food, and you give him protection, etc. So, start off. Feudalism, a system of rule in which local lords divided their land amongst lesser lords. In exchange, these lesser lords, or as we're now going to know them, vassals, pledged service and loyalty to a greater lord. So after Charlemagne's death, his successors were too weak to maintain the law. Under the face of invasions by Vikings and Muslims and Magyars, people needed protection for themselves in their home and their lands. In response to these basic needs, In response to these basic needs for protection, a new system evolved called feudalism. It was loosely organized of rule in which power local lords divided land holdings amongst lesser lords in exchange, as I said, for these lesser lords, these vassals giving you service. Now, the relationship between lord and vassal was established by customs and traditions by an exchange of pledges known as a feudal contract. Now, this feudal contract, a lord would grant his vassal what's called a fief. You can see that down over here. This fief is an estate that your lord grants you. It's for you and you alone. Now, fiefs range from acres of land to hundreds of square miles. In addition to the land itself, the fief included the peasants that lived on the land to work the land, as well as towns and buildings on the land. So you're getting a lot out of this fief. You're really scoring big time in this. As a part of the feudal contract, a lord promised to protect his vassal. In return, the vassal pledged loyalty to his lord. He also agreed to provide the lord with 40 days of military service. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter, whatever. 40 days of military service each year, certain money payments, and advice whenever they needed it. Take her out. Take her out. She's just standing by the door. Sorry, guys. Real life. Real life. A structured society by everyone had a place in feudal society. Below the monarch were powerful lords, as you can see over here. The king, the monarch, is on top. Then we got nobles, lords, and vassals. These were dukes and counts who held large fiefs under the king. Each of these lords had vassals, and the vassals in their own turn had vassals, right? You see knight and lower vassals over here. In many cases, the same man was both vassal and lord. Now, what does that mean? That means if we look over here, knights and lower vassals, you can see that they can not only be a vassal to a lord to a peasant, but a vassal to a noble. So you have to play both sides of the coin. It's not as simple as just saying, hey, you know, I'm a lord and I'm only a lord. There's two sides to each coin. As a vassal would pledge loyalty to several lords who could have a serious problem, right? If you pledge your loyalty to different people, and if they all ask you to do different things, especially if your lords start fighting with each other, what do? So what was he to do if both demanded his aid? If he pledged to two lords and both lords go to war with each other and they're both like, hey, Joe Schmo, come help me, what are you going to do? So to solve this problem, a vassal usually had a liege lord, which is like your main lord to whom he owed his first loyalty. So if you're the liege lord and a lesser lord asks, you know, liege lord and another lord are going to fight, you automatically go to the liege lord. That is your that's your biggest priority. Now, you can see over here that the king provides land, and then provides protection, and the peasants on the other side provides food to the knights, who provide protections for the nobles, who provide loyalty, tax money, and protection from the knights to the king. Small video that you guys can watch. All right, the manor system. Now, the manor was the lord's estate. During the Middle Ages, the manor system was the basic economic arrangement. The manor system rested on a set of rights and obligations between a lords and a serfs. So the lord provided serfs with housing. They provided farmland, protection from bandits. In return, the serfs tended the lord's land. That means that they would plow it and try to yield some crop from it, as you can see in the picture below. Cared for his animals, performed other tasks to maintain the estate. Peasant women actually shared in the farm work with their husbands. All peasants, whether free or owned or serf, owed a certain loyalty, owed the lord certain duties. They must do these things every year. This included at least a few days of labor each week, and a certain portion of their grain. So peasants are really rarely going to travel. They traveled more than 25 miles from their home. That's a very, very large, way to go for a peasant. They could see, by standing in the center of a plowed field, they could see their entire world at a glance. Like, just imagine that. If you have a flat area, you can see really far into this is everything. This is the only place I've ever lived. Like we said numerous times in the ancient world, it's not so simple to just get up and move. It doesn't really work like that. Now, during the Middle Ages, the church's most important achievement was to Christianize the diverse people of Western Europe. A lot of different people, and the church is like, you a Christian, you a Christian, you a Christian, and you a Christian, and you a Christian, you a Christian. Oh, you black man, you a Christian. No, you a white man, you a Christian. You Asian, you're a Christian. Everyone was becoming Christian. So the age's most important achievement was to Christianize diverse people. In 597, Pope Gregory I sent Augustine to convert Anglo-Saxons in England. From Britain, later missionaries went back to the continent to spread faith among the Germanic tribes like the Franks, the Visigoths, the Huns, etc. Women also spread faith even at the risk of their own lives. Some women married pagan kings. Pagan kings meaning they worshiped idolatry, and brought their husbands into the church. Clothide was an example, just like Clothide and Clovis brought her husband Clovis, after Clovis was a king of the Franks, to accept Christianity. Clovis himself was a pagan king. Now, in manor villages, the priest and the parish were usually the people were the only contact people had of the church. So the priest cared for his souls and parishioners by celebrating the Mass and administrating sacraments, the sacred rites of the church. Christians believed that faith in Christianity and participation in the sacraments would lead them to salvation or an everlasting life with God, Olam Haba. In addition to administering sacraments, priests preached the gospel of Christianity. They guided poor in issues. They aided the sick and needy. Christian rituals of faith were part of the fabric of society at that point, right? Priests married peasants and nobles together, baptized their children, and buried the dead in the sacred ground. The village church, let's see. Oh, we didn't get up here yet. Okay, so this is where we're going to end. Wait, I just got a little bit more. Yeah, we got a little bit more. So the church was this social center as well as a place of worship, right? You don't just go to church in order to pray to God. You go to church to talk to everybody as well. You have a bunch of other Christians there. You have a bunch of other people from your town, other towns. You know, they all come together to the church, and you're like, hey, Jimmy, I haven't seen you in ages. But after services, the peasants gossiped and danced, although the priest might condemn their rowdy songs or behavior. It depends on the type of priest you have. You have a chilled priest, probably not. You have a real extreme priest, we'll see. In later years, some parishes and priests ran schools. Villages took pride in their church buildings and decorated them with care. In later medieval times, prosperous communities built stone churches rather than wooden ones. Some churches house relics or remains of martyrs, holy figures. You keep these things inside the church. To support itself and the parish, the church required a tax, though. This is going to be called a tithe, which you see at the bottom over here. A tithe, if you forgive me, I just lost myself in my notes. A tithe is a tax equal to 1/10 of their income. So the tithe had origins in the Bible. For those of you who know, this is truma. The tithing is still common in many Christian churches today. Daily life revolved around the Christian calendar, which marked holy days such as Easter and Christmas, changes in season. In medieval times, many holidays were added to the calendar to honor saints. The church taught that men and women were equal before God, but on earth women were viewed as daughters of Eve, weakly and easily led to sin. So this is, if you ever heard of something called the patriarchy, this is what people are mostly talking about. Patriarchy mainly comes from religion, where they say, listen, there were two people originally made. There was man, and then they took a rib from man, they made woman, and then man and woman were in heaven, wherever, you know, the Garden of Eden, and women cause men to sin. So women are automatically the cause of sin. Not true. I mean, I know plenty of men that don't really need a woman to sin, but, you know, this is the patriarchy. This is how religion viewed women, very much so, especially in early times. At the same time, the church offered a view of the ideal woman, modest and pure, like the mother of Yashka. Many churches were dedicated to the mother of God or the queen of heaven. The church tried to protect women and set a minimum age for marriage. You can't get married too young. Church courts could fine men who seriously injured their wives, yet they could often punish women more harshly for the same offense. So if you're trying to defend yourself, I would recommend being a little more cautious. Okay, this is where we're going to end today. We're going to pick this back up on Monday, but it's a pleasure to see you all. Please be safe, be healthy, wash your hands, soap and water. Not a please, it's not a beg, just do it. Do it. And I'll see you guys later. Shabbat Shalom. And that is it for, if I could just end this, me.